From day one, Devonia insisted he was innocent of the 1998 murder of Donna Brown, a Taco Bell night manager in Adel, Georgia. Not only was the evidence against Devonia not there, but someone else had confessed to the crime. But in 2014, the state Supreme Court declined to hear Devonia's appeal. He was in prison for 23 years until December 20th, 2021, when he walked out of prison just in time to celebrate his first Christmas as a free man with his family.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Convoluted. I'm Jesse Asher, and today I'm going to continue telling you about Devonia Inman, who spent 23 years wrongfully locked up. This is part 2 about Devonia Inman. This is important. Devonia Inman doesn't get any compensation for being wrongfully convicted for 23 years in Georgia, and so with the first link below you can click on, it's a fundraiser for Devonia Inman to help him get some funds now that he's been out for a few months. And as of the time of filming this, they've received $38,075, and their goal is to receive $50,000. So please check that out and donate if you can. In the first part, I told you about what led to Devonia Inman being found guilty for the murder of Donna Brown in Adel, Georgia. And so in the second part, I'm going to tell you about everything that happened after his conviction in June of 2001, and we're going to start in 2006, when his conviction was upheld in the Georgia Supreme Court. But Inman did later receive help from the Georgia Innocence Project and Georgia State University Law School professor Jessica Cino and her students. That show I mentioned in the first episode, True Crime Story, It Couldn't Happen Here, they met with Jessica Cino and interviewed her, so I would recommend watching that episode if you have Amazon Prime or checking it out. Jessica Cino explained in that episode how the case appeared airtight for the prosecution based off of those witnesses. Marquetta Thomas, she was the one that claimed Devonia had money on him from the Taco Bell. Larissa Chapman, who initially claimed that she saw him at the Taco Bell. And then you had Virginia Tatum, who put Devonia in Donna Brown's car. And then you had the jailhouse snitch, jailhouse confession with Kwame Spalding. And remember the homemade sweatpant mask thing that I brought up earlier? Well, they ended up requesting DNA from that in 2010, and then the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, they identified DNA that actually matched Hercules Brown, who I also mentioned in the first part. So that's it, we're done. That's part 2. He gets to go home. Well, not quite. They actually held a hearing on a motion for a new trial in 2014 after the DNA results were shown to belong to Hercules Brown. But for some reason that motion was denied. And of course, Inman appealed that denial, and that appeal was also denied. I want to mention something else that was talked a lot about in that show, True Crime Story, It Couldn't Happen Here on Amazon Prime. It seemed, after time had passed, that most of the people in Adel, Georgia, all kind of thought or knew that it was Hercules Brown who was responsible for the death of Donna Brown in the robbery. There were 3 murders that took place in 2000, plus Donna Brown's murder in 1998. So the murders continued in this small town even after Devonia was locked up. That probably, raised some suspicion amongst the people. In 2017 and 18, things started to actually turn around a bit though. I want to mention one more time that there's a couple podcasts out there. One called Murderville, Georgia, and the other one called Breakdown. Devonia Inman's pro bono legal team actually started to grow and included a team from the Atlanta office of Troutman, Pepper, Hamilton, Sanders. And in January 2008, Devonia Inman filed a state law habeas corpus petition for a new trial. The petition stated that the jailhouse snitch, Kwame Spalding, he recanted his testimony and stated that Devonia never had confessed to him about the crime. And Inman's attorneys, according to the Intercept, received more than 15,000 pages of records that belonged to Inman's original trial lawyer. So the team was actually doing just great work at this point, it seemed, and they found arrest reports of Hercules Brown back in September of 2000. And this was months before Inman's trial, but a couple years after the murder and robbery of Donna Brown. The arrest report showed that Hercules Brown had previously been arrested with a gun, drugs, and a similar homemade mask, and Hercules Brown had been convicted and sentenced to life for a double murder in Adel. And the team, according to The Intercept, also gained permission to interview Hercules Brown, but he would end up refusing to participate. The judge ruled that Devonia Inman was entitled to a hearing after the Georgia Attorney General's office opposed the motion and asked to dismiss the petition without a hearing. And more from the Intercept, apparently due to COVID, this hearing was actually delayed multiple times. The hearing, when it did started with a request by the defense that an adverse inference should be drawn from Hercules' refusal to cooperate. They also followed up by focusing on how Inman had his rights violated. And the other argument they presented was that the state concealed evidence from Inman's lawyer at trial, and his lawyers who took care of said trial and his first appeal had failed to provide adequate defense. The Attorney General's office then sought permission to file an appeal. The Georgia Supreme Court denied the request to appeal, and then Presiding Justice David Namias and then Chief Justice Harold Melton wrote separately urging the Attorney General's office to stop defending Devonia Inman's conviction. November 2021, Devonia Inman was vacated of his convictions by Judge Graham and a new trial was ordered. Judge Graham ruled that there was a failure on the prosecution to disclose the arrest reports of Hercules Brown that would have been critical in Inman's defense. Judge Graham, in addition, ruled that Inman's defense, Melinda Riles, became aware of the arrest reports after Devonia Inman had been convicted. Riles never disclosed the reports' existence to the court or any legal team. Those reports were found as part of the habeas petition in 2019. And I'm just going to quote a section from the National Registry of Exonerations. Judge Graham ruled that the trial and post-conviction proceedings against Mr. Inman were fundamentally unfair and are unworthy of confidence in their outcome. On December 16th, 2021, the case was remanded back to Superior Court after the Attorney General's office decided to finally not appeal the ruling. I want to add one more detail about that in case I forgot to mention earlier. According to the Intercept, the Attorney General's office waited until the last couple hours before the deadline on December 16th about whether they would appeal or not. So they just kind of prolonged it and made them wait. The judicial circuit, God damn, I hate that word. Judicial Circuit Attorney Chase Studstill moved to dismiss the charges on the 20th, and Chief Judge Clayton Tomlinson granted the motion. According to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Tomlinson declared that Devonia Inman be released from prison as soon as possible. And Devonia Inman was finally released after 23 years being locked up in prison for a crime that he didn't do, and upon release, he was 43 years old. Not to mention that Hercules Brown killed 2 more people during the 2 years that Devonia sat in jail awaiting his trial. And the Breakdown podcast, like I said before, goes more into details about that as well. According to the Georgia Innocence Project, Georgia is one of the many states that does not currently have a statutory compensation law to provide financial relief for the many years that Devonia had lost. The Valdosta Daily Times had a really good article that goes more in depth about the compensation and Inman's lack thereof, which I'll also link below so you can check that out for yourself. And I'm going to quote something that Devonia said from the Georgia Innocence Project. Quote, "I spent 23 years behind bars for something I didn't do. It took a really long time to fix, even though it was so clear I wasn't guilty. I'm glad I get to finally go home, and I'm grateful to everyone who helped make that possible." According to The Intercept, Devonia walked out of prison on December 20th, greeted by friends and family, tears, smiles, laughter, all that. It was a nice thing to see, which you can see in some of the news clips with some of the links below. After release, Devonia Inman was going to rejoin his family in California and spend his first Christmas released as a free man in 23 years. There's another BNC news video on YouTube that I'll link below, in which they interviewed Devonia and his parents, and it was uploaded on January 10th, 2022. So in that video, Devonia and his family discuss the struggles they've had during his lockup and now that he's been released. They discuss him going back to college and getting his license and just some of his future plans. So I'd recommend checking it out for yourself. And that's it. You know, I'm just hoping the best for Devonia and his family. I'm hoping he's enjoying being released and able to get some help. There's a fundraiser I will link below that you can donate to Devonia Inman, since he never was able to get compensation from the state. So make sure to check that fundraiser out, donate if you're able to. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. Subscribe, like, leave a comment below if there's anything you want to talk about or a case that you want me to look into. And of course, make sure to check out the Georgia Innocence Project, where you can donate and or volunteer if you're able to. Make sure to check out the National Registry of Exonerations. Both of those I will link below. Every source that I used I will link below as well. Thank you guys, and Auf Wiedersehen.